And we're down to about verse 35. This is one of the instances where the disciples are in the boat and it comes a storm. My commentary says those storms are quite frequent because the Sea of Galilee is below sea level and there's hills on each side of it, and the winds can just come coming down and create a very violent storm in a real short manner. But evidently this one is these are experienced fishermen, and yet they're this one here is a very, very bad one because it's got them afraid they're going to die. They don't know what to do with it. Let's start reading there at verse 35. On that day when evening came, he said to them, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took him along with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And there arose a fierce gale of wind, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so much that the boat was already filling up. Jesus himself was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Master, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he got up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Hush, be still." I think your older translations say, "Peace, be still." And the wind died down, and it became perfectly calm. And he said to them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They became very much afraid and said to one another, "Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" They'd watched him perform all these miracles and different things, but here even the elements of the air, the elements in this world, the wind and the storm and the sea, even they obeyed him.
Just didn't have the concept of him being God.
That him being God was, that was, you're right. They just couldn't get that, and it'd be hard to grasp. He was God in the flesh. They're very afraid for their life. What is this? We're evidently not out of in boat. We're not with Jesus. But what is the lesson out of this for us today? When the storms of life, if you will, encompass us, whether it's financial dealings or health dealings or whatever, and tragedy is all around us. They went to certain. Do what?
He's still there.
He's still there. He was the calm in the storm. He wasn't worried about it, was he? He was down there resting. Everybody else was just having a hissy, if you will. We're about to all die. They want to wake you up. Don't you care? We're all about to die. Here you are down here asleep.
I imagine he was pretty tired most of the time.
Yes. Because he was encompassed about, everywhere he went. Because his fame had gotten, spread around, here's a man that could heal people, who cast out demons. His first recorded miracle was he turned water into wine. He's got the power. Now he's proved to them he's even got power over the elements of the world, of nature. But when things are all going bad around us, we think, and things are just look like there's never going to be a way out, then look to Jesus, because he's the calm in the storm. Some of the songs, he's our anchor. He's what can hold us still.
Virgil, in King James, in the verse where they get in the ships, I think it's, I'd like to ask what your Bible says. It says, when they sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships.
Yeah, mine said Well, I gotta find it.
38.
And they didn't say little boats. So in verse 36 it says, leaving the crowd, they took him along with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. So there were other boats.
I think it's, to me, when they say little ships, and that means that anybody in the multitude that can find a ship, no matter, or a boat, whatever it was that could float,
Yeah,
they were gonna follow him.
they will follow him, yeah. Okay. Now, this one here just says other boats, but yours says little boats, okay?
And I'm telling you, it didn't matter the size.
Yeah.
They were gonna float, they were gonna get into it.
Yeah, if the bigger boat was in trouble, you can imagine what the little boat was getting into.
Well, and you know, at this point, the only way he could get any rest, because it mentions it several different places, was to get away, because the
Yeah.
crowds were constantly there. And, you know, at times it says he went to the mountain, or he went here, just somewhere,
Yeah.
get away from the crowds for a minute.
He was human after all, he got tired.
Yes. Okay, any questions on that particular part? Before we start chapter 5. Chapter 5 starts a whole new deal. Leland, you got any questions before we start? Go ahead. Okay, y'all all heard him. Okay, well, I welcome the questions. I just wasn't going to give you a chance to. Chapter 5. They came to the other side of the sea, into the country of this one says Gerasenes. I think your older translation say Gadarenes. You mean it's on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Now the Sea of Galilee is not that big. You know, we've got lakes that's as bigger than the Sea of Galilee. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. And he had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him any more, even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him and the shackles broken in pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, and gashing himself with stones. Now, this man was not simply a crazy man. This man was invaded, or what are you going to say about with demons? What is the difference between Matthew's account and Mark's and Luke's account? It's the same happening, but there's something different. Matthew says there were two of them. Mark and Luke only record one guy. Any commentary you want to find, the only explanation they can come up with is that Mark and Luke record the one that did all the talking. He was the important one, but there was another one there also, according to Matthew. This man had been invaded by demons. He had supernatural is not really the good word I'm looking for, but he had extraordinary strength. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
So if there were two of them, they both had the same problem?
They had the same problem with this and it. All the commentaries, that the only explanation they can come up with is that Mark and Luke just record the one that did, it was the main one, the one that did most of the talking. You know, this one here. But Matthew really says there were two.
But they're both suffering.
But they're both suffering, yeah. But he did have extraordinary power, if you will, as far as his strength, because they chained him and shackled him with things that were adequate for most prisoners, yet he just tore them apart. Said he was constantly, night and day, he was screaming and running through the tombs and cutting himself with rocks, sharp stones. Verse 6 says,
Marshall,
yes,
have you ever been around anybody who has had a mental problem and they use cutting as a way to relieve their anguish?
I've read about people that does it, but I never have been around anybody personally that did this.
My friend had a 15-year-old daughter who became severely mentally ill when she was 15. Okay? And the way that they found out that she was having any problems because she was acting fairly normal was that they noticed, you know, she wasn't wearing like short sleeves and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so when they finally got to surgery, her arms were covered in old cuts, scars, and stuff where she had been cutting herself for quite a while.
Okay.
And somehow it relieved the anguish that she was feeling. That's the only way I can describe what they talked to me about. So, you know, immediately they started getting her help, but I had never known that people do that. So I'm assuming that the anguish that this man is having, evidently it's so bad mentally that if you cut yourself and hurt yourself, it somehow takes away the mental pain.
That has been a trend among young people in the last few years.
Okay.
And I can't really say that it was directly connected with mental illness, but it was, I guess it's indirectly because they were doing it, as I understand it, just to be accepted and to draw attention to themselves.
Okay.
Well, this girl definitely was diagnosed.
She was diagnosed.
Yes.
Well, you know, an example I can give you, you may have a really bad headache, but if you're going through the house in the dark, trying to get to the aspirin bottle or whatever it is you take for those kind of pain, and you kick your toe on the chair, which one you forget all about the headache, don't you? Isn't that right, Bob? Didn't you kick your toe here a while back?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, you might not have been after but if you'd had a headache, you wouldn't worry about it then, would you?
No.
Virgil,
Yes,
when you're going through that and you don't have Jesus in you, sometimes the physical pain is better than the mental
Okay.
struggle that you're doing.
okay,
So, I see a lot of times people, you know, you listen to testimonies and stuff, and a lot of times it's people trying to get away from that mental pain by inflicting the physical pain on themselves.
okay. That's a good point. Did everybody hear what, I had listened pretty close, she didn't. But anyway, said that if you don't have Jesus and you have mental problems or mental anguish, sometimes the only way to get that part out of your mind is to inflict physical pain upon yourself. And then, like I say, then you'll forget about the temporarily the other. And that's the same way with people who say they drink to forget. And, they maybe have a really bad situation, with women or men or whatever, and while they are physically incapacitated from being drunk, they can't remember it. But as soon as they sober up, well, the problem's still there, and so they drink some more. And that's the one way people, they claim they use it to relieve themselves from the anguish, but it doesn't accomplish anything. It just causes more problems. Just like cutting yourself would cause more problems, you start to bleed, or a bruise or whatever. But sometimes that's the only avenue people have or think they have, because as Olivia said, they don't have Jesus to be anchored to. And that's why this man was possessed by demons, it says. We haven't got that far, but by more than one. Let's continue reading. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up, bowed down before him, and shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, do not torment me."
You notice I said we.
Yeah. For he had been saying to them, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And he was asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many."
This is a thing that hit me today when I was reading this, is that this man had to be in so much torment. I mean, because he didn't have one demon, okay? Legion, does that not refer to a legion of Roman soldiers was
I think it's 1,000 men, I believe, but I'm not, I mean, somebody,
does anybody know? Cause I hadn't thought
said
about that.
Centurion was over 100 men, but I'm not, a legion was more than that. So that's
The Bible talks about the legion of angels.
legions of angels, yeah. I always assumed it was 1,000, but I might be wrong.
I think the legion was 12,000.
12,000, okay.
So if this is the same word, using the same word.
Yeah. Anyway, he had a whole bunch, bunch, more than anybody could stand.
Well, remember when
pigs worth?
Yeah. 2,000 pigs worth.
2,000 pigs worth.
when Jesus said that he could call 12 legions of angels,
Yeah.
there's a connection between that people make and, the 144,000.
Okay.
And so that's basically the number that he was referring to when he said 12 legions of angels. That 12 times 12 is, I think, 144.
Yeah, pretty close.
And so I
It used to
think
be.
it's 12,000 is what it's referring to.
Okay.
A legion in the Roman army is 5,000 to 5,400 men.
She says the legion, or according to Google, the legion in the Roman army was 5,400 men.
Okay.
Which explains why he was so strong.
Yes.
And I don't think it's improper for us to refer to the strength that he had as being supernatural,
Okay.
because it wasn't natural.
Well, it wasn't natural.
So it was beyond natural, so
Okay.
it was supernatural.
That's right.
It wasn't the kind of supernatural that came from God, but it came from,
Came from demons, from
Yeah.
Satan. Verse 10 says, and he began to implore him earnestly not to send them out of the country. And that's plural, them out of the country.
What is that? What is that? What's he referring to, sending out of the country? It shows the pigs over being sent out of the country.
I'm not sure about that part, but they have someone in possession now, and I don't know. You'd have to. The question is, what does that mean to be sent out of the country?
Well, they were in a country.
They were in a country, but why would it bother them other than they'd have to find somebody else to inhabit? I guess I don't know.
Another word could be region, but one she calls it region.
Another region, okay.
They may have been worried about being sent to Hades too.
Okay, they may have been worried about getting a lot. It says that the hell is reserved for the devil and his angels, and that doesn't it say some of them's already locked up and can't get away, can't out. So that may have been one. I don't know. That's kind of one of the questions that doesn't really give us a good answer to that I know about. But anyway, yes, ma'am.
Do you think it was because they didn't know how the pigs would react, or do you think they knew how the pigs would react? Like, do you think they thought the pigs was a safe option? I don't know.
I don't. We're going to get into that here in just a minute if we get far as the pigs. Okay, I'm going to give you my theory on it. And yeah, but you're right. I don't know that I don't know why the pigs would be a better option. I really don't know. Other than it says the demons implored us, send us into the swine that we may enter them. Well, I missed the verse. Now there was a large herd of swine nearby on the mountains. Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea. about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. Their herdsmen ran away and reported it to the city and in the country, and the people came to see what it was that happened. They came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon possessed, sitting down, clothed in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion, and they became frightened. Those who had seen it described to them how it had happened to the demon-possessed man and all about the swine, and they began to implore him to leave their region. I think that's the answer. Jesus didn't get to continue teaching. They accomplished their part, is that he had, you got to get it, you just leave. We don't want to hear it. This is too much for us. Here we have this guy nobody could control. Now he's all right. That part's good. But all these hogs, it's 2,000 pigs in the water, all drowned herself. You're just more than we can stand. You got to leave. And so he didn't get to give his message. And then that would have been the accomplishment they had by going into the swine. Okay.
While I'm reading the King James, it uses the word devils and unclean spirit. It doesn't use the word demons.
Okay.
As far as right. And so I think that's I'm reading it and it goes, and the devils besought him.
Okay.
And then it says the unclean spirits came out of him. I've never seen them use that like a
Okay.
in the same verbs that you can call them devils and unclean
Devils and unclean spirits are the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Next week is September something. Second or third, second, I believe. And we'll start right along here. We may want to re-talk about the